So welcome back, and so we will continue on the topic of market research for new product. So basically this is the content that we are making from a particular paper that we are reading, and certainly the bigger goal here is that we are making a playlist where we want to study for our community the market research problems or various tools which are important for product building, developing new product or innovation in mostly in academic point of view, or maybe sometimes in an industry point of view also. So yeah, and this is a new approach. I have another playlist where I continually make videos on product development, to be specific, where the content for that playlist is basically mostly from a book actually. So each not each video, but subsequent videos are basically the content from individual chapters that I thought is important for the community that we are. But here basically I am starting with the paper, and then I will try to get some concepts and terminologies and try to explore which terminologies or which techniques are more relevant for our community, and try to add up to the playlist and knowledge portfolio that we are gathering here. And specifically aim is basically I want to learn this thing, and by posting these videos on YouTube, I hope the community would be will get some interesting insight into this topic from the videos. So yeah, so let's get started. So in the last week's video, I have the where we ended is basically the fact that uh, that when we are developing a new product from a marketing research point of view, there are five interesting problems or five stages of market research problem that one can think of. First is identification of the latent demand, because that is something that you always have to understand, that what is the demand in the market, and then only you can think of the new product. And of course a lot of context comes to the picture, like as in corporation or as a lab in academic setting, what are the not advantage, sorry, what are the skill set that your lab has in terms of you as a professor or assistant professor, and of course your students basically. So these all thing comes to the picture. And second step is identification of requirements valued by the customer. Third step is concept testing, and fourth step is prototype testing, and finally fifth step is evaluation of the product performance with customers. So these are first of all content made from a paper, and they contextualize these things in terms of a not for an academic point of view, but from a private corporation point of view, let's say. But we try to get our own material, or try to get our own understanding from an academic researcher's point of view, let's say. That's because that's the mostly the community is made of that people, I hope so, but maybe there are other people from different branches, so they can also get help from this content. So first of all, we have to understand that the market research in itself is a big topic, and a lot of MBA courses, management courses contain market research as a, let's say, some specific you know lectures, etc. So we have to understand that before going into those detail of things, which again the video here will be not very satisfying, will not be most probably not satisfying, because we are trying to set the stage for our playlist here. But let's understand the market research process in itself, not focusing on the product development point of view, but rather what is market research means. So according to a paper that is referenced as one here in the slide, there are 6 essential steps of effective market research. First is definition of the problem and the research objective. Second is development of the research plan. Third is data collection. Fourth is data analysis. Fifth is results presentation, and the final sixth step is decision making. Now let's understand a little bit about each step. So when researchers perform step 1, definition of the problem and the research objective, that is when the when the reasons that support the need for development of field research and what is the intended to obtain from the answers to the research are elucidated. So it is possible to distinguish between the three types of projects: exploratory, descriptive, and casual. Furthermore, during the definition of the problem and the objectives, the researcher define the conception of the study, that is whether it is a qualitative or quantitative. Exploratory type surveys should be conducted when the objective involves gathering preliminary data to clarify the nature of the problem and suggest possible hypotheses or new ideas. Descriptive research should be used when describing market characteristics or functions, while casual studies are necessary when the objective is to test cause-effect relationship. Now, having defined the type of research to be executed, it is possible to do the second step, which is to develop the research plan. This step establishes the approach and the sampling plan to be used, as well as the instrument and the most appropriate procedure for data collection. And then after that comes the third step. Data collection stage is characterized by requiring more time as well as by gathering probability of errors, especially when the approach that is being used is the survey. In order to minimize the possibility of deviation in the results due to biased data collection, it is suggested to detail the collection procedure plan. Now, fourth step is the data analysis, which involves the interpretation of the data collected. The methodology of data analysis to be performed depends on the initial objectives of the research as well as the type of the project. In the presentation of the result, which is the fifth step, the reference 1 in the slide emphasize that means the paper that is referenced in the slide, that paper emphasized that it is the responsibility of the researchers to select the results that respond more specifically to the problem that lead to the study, using appropriate communication techniques and describing conclusion relevant to the decision making. Finally, regarding the decision making step, which is the sixth step, when receiving the result of the market survey, managers should question whether the research carried out was based on an adequate scientific method, because they are responsible for what will happen to the money that are invested by the corporation, etc., etc. Now as far as about the second step, which is more important, which is the first important step, I would say, or every step is important, but more about the second step is like that, the research approach may be indirect or direct. In the indirect approach, the objective of the project are masked for respondents, while the direct approach, they are obvious to the participant considering the nature of the instrument. So here you can see direct and indirect approach, the screenshot in the right, where what are the techniques to be followed, what are the observation to be made, and etc. In the direct approach, of course, there can be focus group, which we know, like a group of people who are expert in the field. I think individual interview, Delphi technique, a structured exploratory form of research that focuses on the perception of a recognized specialist, usually regarding the anticipation or prediction of future events. Then, of course, survey, experimentation, etc. So here we understand technically that what is basically a market research in generally means. uh, Again, just to wrap up thing here, so let's understand the data analysis, which is very much important. The form of data analysis that will be used stems from the research objective, the type of project that was carried out, and its design. Thus, qualitative exploratory research will have the results submitted to the content analysis. So these are content analysis, again, as a term that if you need to understand, then you need to go to read, have to read some more paper, etc., or maybe some book actually. So here basically, again, just to contextualize things, so we are basically making a video where we are just entering into the field and we try to basically give you a glimpse of things and try to put forward big terminologies or important terminologies and try to understand what is more important or what are more important for us. So thus qualitative exploratory research will have the results submitted to content analysis, while the quantitative, descriptive or casual survey will have the data obtained from the collection submitted to statistical analysis. So that makes sense. As qualitative research generates a significant amount of research notes or testimonials, content analysis suggests that the frequency of phenomena is counted, seeking to identify relationship among them, and the interpretation of the data is systematized according to conceptual model previously defined by the researchers. In addition to content analysis, qualitative research data can also be submitted to conversation analysis or semiotic analysis. On the other hand, statistical analysis of the data coming from quantitative research usually goes through the following stages: univariate analysis, bivariate analysis, and multivariate analysis. In the univariate analysis, frequencies are established for each question researched. In the bivariate analysis, cross tabulations are performed and it is possible to calculate different measures of association between the variables. Similarly, multivariate analysis. So to sum up in this slide, what we basically try to explain to you is what is market research process in a general term, not specifically related to product development, but what it means. And basically we saw that there are basically main 6 steps, starting from defining the research problem, and then of course then describing the research, how to do the research specifically, and then how to more importantly how to collect the data, and then because that's very important, maybe a lot of fundamental science people may not have the exposure of this kind of thing, but in social science and I think in humanities there are a lot of research where they have to build a questionnaires, to build a effective survey. They need to do a very concentrated research on what will be the questions that they will go to the public, this person will given this survey and they will have to answer, etc., etc. So making that question itself is a part of research, and that will come into development of the research plan, etc. And in fact these are, we can relate this thing because in a lot of big groups we also have this thing that okay, so in a lot of big collaboration what happens is that basically they have a very small amount of time on collaboration, that maybe one group from another country is visiting collaborating group in other country, and they have to decide within 2 weeks that this will be the thing and this is the paper and this is how we'll write, etc., etc. And it's somewhat funny also, but that's how it works, I know for sure. And so similar thing here also, that you need to decide on what are the methodologies, etc., etc. And of course data analysis is important, and results presentation and discussion. So it's more of not very exact science, if I may say that particular term, because there is religiosity into that, that we are basic science people, etc. And a lot of people have this particular mindset, but it's not right thing. But anyway, yeah, so we know now, we understand that these are the basic 6 steps, and then what goes into the each step, that also we understand. Now we will try to understand basically how these knowledge can be used in the specific problem of market research in context to new product development. Now that we know that these are the basic methodologies, I mean, in the previous slide we understood that what is market research process as such, and now the author here defines 5 market research problems at various stages of product development. First, so this is something that I have mentioned in the previous week's video also, but just to recap here. So the first problem is mapping the latent demand, that whatever product or machine that you want to develop in your lab or in a corporation, whatever it is there any demand for that? And more important, is there any latent demand or not? Because sometimes demands are basically, for the users, the demands are not so easy to conceive in a straightforward way. So unless that particular instrument or particular application or machine had been proposed to them, or not like given to them, just think about an hypothetical situation, then they will realize that, okay, oh yeah, that's very helpful. So that's why we should always consider the latent demand also, not just the usual demand that you can see in the market, let's say. Second market research problem in product development is identification of the requirements valued by customers. So after understanding that what is roughly a latent demand can be, then going into much more detail, like identifying the exact features of the machine or the innovation that you want to bring. Third is concept, in the phase of concept testing. So concept testing, prototype testing, these are all part of product development process that we discuss in our another playlist that you can find in the channel. So in those phases also, one can do specific market research to understand, gain more insight into the, let's say, whether the product that they are conceiving is going to be successful or not. I mean, so you want to reduce the risk. So in that context also, market research plays a big role in the concept testing phase. Similarly, prototype testing, and eventually after launching the product, you want to that's not it, because you are a corporation or let's say an academic lab. So your job as a PI or as an assistant professor will go on. So you need to understand from your mistake, or let's say whatever the good decision that you have made in the project. So from the response that you get from the market, so this is of course more important for a corporation. So the evaluation of the product performance with the customers. So that's the last step of market research in product development phases process. Now in the previous slide we saw that what are the 6 descriptive stages of market research, but here for the sake of discussion we try to see market research into 5 technical steps. First is the research approach. Second is the sample, that means how you take the sample. Third is the instrument, that means more detail how to collect, not how to collect data, but the some sort of, let's say it can be maybe survey questions, how you structure it, etc, etc. And fourth is data collection procedure, and the final is how you analyze the data, getting all the research data of the market research, how you analyze and draw a conclusion or gain some insight into it. So that these are the steps, and what we will going to do in the next slide is gradually we'll try to understand all the five stages of five market research problems in context to various stages of product development in the framework of these five steps of market research. That means, for example, in case of mapping the latent demand, so that's individually a separate market research problem that we'll have to approach at first when we are developing a new product. And in that market research problem, the first thing is question is what will be the research approach, how we will know that what is the latent demand in the market, how do we develop the research approach for that. And second is what will be the sample, that means how we'll collect what will be the procedure of taking data, something like that. And similarly instrument and data collection procedure, information analysis. So that's the framework we will look into. And again, just to give you the context here, that I'm not really too much descriptive here. This is the first, not first but the second video of the this playlist. So we will come across a lot of difficult terminologies, and in upcoming videos we'll try to focus on those concepts, and our focus would be we'll pick up things which are more important for us as a academic person, because I think like this is more of an academic channel, or at least me being an academic person till now. Of course, I'm not I don't know what will be there in future. So yeah, now so this is the table, just a summarizing table of first three steps of market research for all the five categories of market research problem in context to product development. So starting with to map the latent demands with the customer, the approach would be, so I will just go and read you through the directly from the paper, just to have a more descriptive view of things, and you will have the table in the slide to look into. Yeah. So the approach, or the research approach that will map the latent demands with consumers should be straightforward, and the use of focus groups is recommended. Now here focus group basically means a group of mostly expert people in the field, specifically from the user point of view. Like if your product is a machine, then or it's a business to business B2B business framework, like you are building a product which is be used by some another business. So the focus group will consist of business leader from that user businesses, or in case of if it is a B2C, then of course it will be some customer. And yeah, I exactly don't know how to approach these people, but that's the academic knowledge point of view, that's the way to do it. And basically it's about having, let's say, 10-12 people, expert people, and let them talk about the not the problem, but to have a moderator, and then they will discuss about themselves, that what will the future, what is demand, etc. And the moderator will have a open-ended question, like that, okay, so I'm thinking like that, what do you think? And they will go on discussing, and from that, so it's a very qualitative thing, but that's the way people go about it. This decision is justified because the distinctive characteristics perceived between this approach and the individual interviews, highlighting the interaction that the group allows and the easiness of the agenda. Now as far as sample is concerned, the sample suggested for the research that will map latent demand is non-probabilistic by quotas. So here again, this is a terminology, and that we'll go into in next video. Hopefully for this video I'm not really looking into explaining every bit of things. The sampling procedure is justified since in qualitative exploratory studies the focus is on the quality of the answers to be obtained, not on the number of respondents. In addition, since in this study the objective involves the identification of new product idea that meet the consumer market needs, control variable should be established for the population element to be selected, such as gender, age, income, lifestyle, among others. So that is about how to collect the sample for the market research problem of understanding the latent demand in the market. Now the third step is instrument. What will be the instrument of market research in case of understanding the latent demand? As for the instruments that must be used, a semi-structured script is essential to the knowledge of latent demand so that the discussion of the group remains the focus of the study. Now here again is some terminology, semi-structured script. So we'll go into that later in the later videos. Finally, the ideal with regard to 4, that means the procedure of data collection, would be for all type of studies that are necessary to carry them out in person. However, mainly in performance evaluation research, other means can be employed, such as telephone, internet. So here they are saying that basically for the procedure of collection of data, so that would be same for all the 5 market research problem that will be discussing step by step. So first one is completed right now. So now we'll go to second one. So as far as approach of research is concerned, to identify customer requirement, that is this second market research problem that we are dealing with. To identify customer requirement in the exploratory phase of the approach may be focus groups, individual interviews, or application of projective techniques, which is basically they are more explaining it. What is projective technique? That is basically the choice between the direct and the indirect approach can be made considering the type of audience to be surveyed or the type of product. So again, that's again a terminology that we'll look into future. Now as far as so for this for the 2-phase research that will identify the requirement valued by the customer. So now we are talking about sample of research. It is suggested to work with non-probabilistic sample for the exploratory research with a probabilistic sample for casual research. So this casual and exploratory research that we discussed in the previous slide, I think the ideal sampling type as a non-probabilistic is judgment, since the subject who will participate in generation phase of attributes for a new product must be representative of the population of interest and reliable. The ideal sampling type for probabilistic is the stratified one, which first divides this target population into subpopulation and then chooses the elements to participate in each stratum randomly. So a lot of technicality, but I just read it for you. So yeah, so we'll go into more detail in these subtopics hopefully in next upcoming videos. Now as far as instrument of market research is concerned, so in this second phase of market research, the what you need to do is, in order to identify customers' requirement, it can be used semi-structured script in the first phase if the focus group approach is chosen, or questioning a hidden problem for individual interviews, or even an association for projective uh, techniques. Okay, so a lot of technicality. In the second phase, a structured questionnaire is using a non-metric or ordinal scale should be used. So a lot of technicalities. So I'm just reading from the paper here. And finally, yeah, so the final procedure is same for, so again I'm reading the ideal with regard to 4. The procedure would be for all types of studies that are necessary to carry out in person. However, mainly in performance evaluation research, other means can be employed, such as telephone and internet. So that completes the second market research problem, that is the identifying, if I remember correctly, identifying customer requirements. Yeah. Now we'll go into concept testing. So the approach here would be experimentation. So let me just again read it through. Yeah. In the casual phase, the approach will be experimental, remaining with this for concept test and also for prototype testing. So experimentation basically, if I remember correctly, is a part of a direct approach where the casual plane in which a researcher controls a potential cause and analyzes any corresponding change in the supported effects. So these are again technical, so we'll go into that hopefully in later videos. So that's a part of the direct approach, I would say. Now for the sample, as far as sample is concerned, the concept test and prototype test surveys should use probabilistic sampling, since in these types of studies an objective evaluation of the sample results is desired. The ideal type of sampling in these cases is the conglomerate, since through this mechanism the population is divided into exclusive and collectively exhaustive subpopulation. Now, as far as instrument is concerned, it is also recommended to use the structured questionnaires to test the concept and to test the prototype of product. In this case, the ordinal non-metric scale as well as the metric ratio scale can be applied. And of course, the last step is same for all the problems. Now we'll go into the prototype testing, and I think that is same for approach. As far as approach is concerned, it is same as the concept testing. The casual phase, the approach will be experimental, and as far as sample is concerned, that's also same, probabilistic sampling, etc., and an instrument in that case also, that is same. And of course the last step is same for all. So here you can see, I mean, concept testing and prototype testing is basically same for, I mean, it is same in all the 3 phases, and we'll talk about the last phase, the data analysis, later. Finally, to evaluate the product performance with consumers, that is the something that will happen after the product launch, etc. And as far as approach is concerned, so basically in the product performance evaluation with consumers, it is suggested the survey be carried out at the expense of the observation. This choice is justified because these surveys that in surveys that measure satisfaction, the probability of error is lower when respondents are directly interviewed. And as far as sample is concerned, finally the research of the product performance evaluation with consumer guidance is the use of probabilistic sample and should be used stratifications, preferably by quartile. So a lot of technical terms, so hopefully we'll go into that in detail in upcoming videos. Regarding finally, the as far as instrument is concerned, regarding the research interest that will evaluate the performance of the product in consumer perception, a structured questionnaire with an interval scale metric, preferably a 5-point Likert ranging from totally dissatisfied to totally satisfied, should be used. So that's and then of course the fifth stage is same. So yeah, so that's all about the 5 market research problem and what are the first 3 steps of each market research problem in context to new product development. Finally, the last step is the data analysis and data analysis, and here again a lot of technicality, and here and I think for someone who is familiar with market research, these terminologies will be very familiar, but not for me and not for most probably people who doesn't know about too much about market research. So it's more about various techniques how to analyze data. For example, for first step, which is to map the latent demands with the consumer. So the way we can analyze the data is conversation and content analysis, or it can be multi-criteria technique for processing information through the use of AHP, which is analytic hierarchy process. To identify customer requirement in the phase 1, the conversation and content analysis. So we know about content analysis. So I mean the word itself basically tells the story that there is a lot of unstructured data because it's a qualitative research, so you need to do some content analysis to get more structured data so that you can make a inference out of it. And in the phase 2, analysis of conglomerates, discriminative analysis, and concept testing. In the concept testing case, we can use multiple regression or joint analysis. In case of prototype testing, it can be main component analysis, and I think it's a principal component analysis, but anyway, principal component analysis. And finally, to evaluate product performance with consumers, it can be factor analysis, multiple regression, etc. So that's all about how one can do what are the techniques to use in the data analysis. And so that's all about today's video, and as usual, this is the paper that we are referring, and personally I don't really like the way they have written, and but I think it's a good start to get some terminologies, and hopefully we will try to focus on separate things, or at least try to make separate video for different techniques, and more importantly, we will try to pick up things in context to the community that we are, which will be helpful. I mean, for academic people, a lot of things will not be helpful. For example, if so I want to develop some interesting technology, and for us actually to do even the first step of the market research problem, that means to understand the latent demand in the market, I don't see there is not an easy thing to do, or being an academician. So I think the only option that we are left with is just to delve into the literature, maybe look into the patents, because that's a good indicator of where the big corporations are looking into, etc., etc. But it's hard to gauge into, and maybe various things like going into the conference, etc., etc. So for us actually, the market research may not be very technical or very but maybe it can be very intuitive, maybe it can be anecdotal also. So anyway, so I'm not going to stretch this thing, but hopefully in the playlist, I'll try to add interesting content for our community. So see you in the next week. Bye bye.